Hey people, welcome to today's video. So a lot has been going on in the world and everything. There is people say in Europe and everywhere, many places, the problem is the coronavirus, and people have not found a cure yet and everything and so on. And I don't know much about that and everything, but the lemon tree that I was making and everything, I thought to make a video simply to explain things and how they work and what the hope is that might help out and everything and so on. So in today's video I thought to explain that and show how it might come to some, that there is some help, because many people are looking for a cure and everything and so on. So that's going to be today's video. Okay, so in the beginning, just to explain what trying to explain what the whole problem is. So first is the virus, which is right there, represented as a circle and the look of a virus. Now the question is the coronavirus. Now what people know about it, that it comes from China and that it comes from the blood of snakes. Of some animals in China, people assume it's snakes. Therefore, people know what snakes eat. Snakes do not eat plants, they eat animals, just animals. So there it's already shown why the virus might be a little bit worse, because snakes don't eat plants, they eat animals. Therefore the virus is probably made of animal type atoms. So to explain it in the beginning. So that represents the virus. The virus, people already know, is made out of protein. That's the P right there. And the proteins are made out of viruses, out of amino acids, and amino acids are made out of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and sulfur. Now the worst viruses that are not really that are worst, harder to cure, are especially, I assume, are especially the ones that are made out of sulfur. Sulfur is a way bigger atom than these. These easily dissolve in blood and dissolve when penicillin is added to them, antibiotics and so on, because even most of people's cells are made out of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Vitamins too are made out of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and so on and so on. So if the virus is hard to treat, most likely the reason for that is because it's made out of a lot of sulfur. Sulfur is an atom a lot bigger than any of these. And people know meat, animal meat, is a high concentration of sulfur, of course. So if it comes from the blood of animals, it could be the reason why the virus is hard to treat, is because it's made out of a lot of sulfur. Sulfur is a bigger atom than most viruses, and then it's hard to sort of change it. It's acidic, so it's like an atom that has a strong, like acidic energy. So, and it's big, it's a lot bigger. Sulfur is atomic number 19, 18 or 19, and if I remember correctly, and the carbon is 6, people know oxygen is 8, so on and so on. But another thing to point out, if most likely the virus has hydrogen in it, probably it does, that is something that people can aim for and is sort of like the weak link in the virus, because hydrogen is heat, temperature, and temperature heat helps to break apart the virus, which is the whole point. Penicillin comes into blood and breaks viruses apart, and therefore they disappear. So that's one way of explaining it. So most likely that's the whole problem. Sulfur is in meat of animals, and there is many different animals with different energy equivalent of sulfur in them, and then those atoms go to the blood of the snake
or the animal that caused the virus, in its blood it was made. And then there people can see what the whole problem is. Now, the body, the human body, to address problems of viruses, first has the white blood cells. That's represented here. Of course, that's a lot bigger than a virus, but that's how, didn't have much room, don't have a bigger board, so sorry about that. And these S's shaped there are representations of vitamin C and B6. So that's what I'm making in the lemon tree. And but they, as it is shown there, the vitamin C and vitamin B6 are supposed to give strength and make better the white blood cells, therefore the immune system in general. But what type of effect will they have on the virus itself? I don't really know. Because the virus, if it is made out of sulfur, means it's very acidic. That it's acidic, and usually what breaks viruses apart is antibiotics, penicillin, so on and so on. Treats against the viruses called so on and so on. So what type of effect the vitamins will have on the virus, I don't know. But the point of them is that they are there to strengthen the white blood cells. Now next is penicillin, right there represented. Now penicillin comes to bacteria or virus and so on. Antibiotics are different medicine for different viruses, but they basically all do the same thing. They are all decaying plants, basically, so to speak. Some might be of animals and so on. But penicillin, I chose penicillin just as an explanation. So the penicillin atoms come around a virus or a bacteria, and they irradiate energy, which is sort of a white decaying energy. And then the virus is filled with the decaying white energy of the medicine that is made against it. And then that white energy enters into the proteins, enters into the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, especially hydrogen. And then, because the medicine is the same atoms as the virus or the bacteria, disease, so on and so on. Then, and there is a whole lot around the virus. There is tons and tons of the medicine or penicillin in some cases. And then the white energy fills the entire virus, the energy of the medicine. And then the atoms, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and sulfur, they break apart. Because penicillin is a type of energy that's decaying. Like people know that as mold. Penicillin is mold. So something is falling apart, breaking apart. Plus penicillin is individual atoms. And most medicine is individual atoms that are taken, swallowed through the stomach. So, and then tons of that, the atoms of the medicine come around the virus, they fill it with the white energy, and then that energy enters into the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and then it breaks apart. So the virus is no longer intact, but starts breaking apart, and it too turns into the decaying mold, so to speak. And then the virus is destroyed, its individual atoms, and the body treats it as a food, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and so on and so on. And then when that is over, people see that the virus is destroyed, and basically the what made the virus, the protein atoms, the protein molecules stick together no longer is there, because it starts to decay because of that white energy, so to speak. Which is a simple way of seeing it. That's just like leaving a piece of fruit that it starts to decay away. So when that happens to a virus, because it too is made out of the same atoms as fruit, meat, so on and so on, then the virus is destroyed. So now the only thing that people have not yet found a cure for the coronavirus. Now the reason for that could be that it's probably because it has a whole lot of sulfur. And for sulfur, because it's very acidic and it's a bigger atom than these usual ones, for it is needed to make medicine that has a lot more of that white decaying energy, let's say, so to speak. So it could be the answer to everything is to find a special energy, a special medicine that makes sulfur break apart. So maybe that would mean that that we would need penicillin or a medicine to be made out of decaying parts of sulfur. So not of plants, as usually how penicillin is made, but of some certain meat of an animal. Leave it and make it go decay. And then take the sulfur out of that decay and maybe mix it, make it somehow, turn it into a medicine. But the problem with sulfur, it is acidic, so it's not really healthy. But how decaying away sulfur will act is a different question. But if the problem is sulfur, and most likely it is, probably yes it is, and then that might be one of the answers. So this is what I wanted to show people. This is one of the lemons from my trees that I watered with lemons, as people saw in previous videos, and many other things. It's also watered with enriched ash that I pointed out in previous video about the lemons. How to enrich, how to fertilize and water lemons and citrus trees. Is the video on YouTube. People can see it if they haven't seen it already. So this is one of those lemons that I had. It was getting bigger fast, so it cracked while it was on the tree. And right there people can see is penicillin mold that came to be on the inside of it, not on the outside, but on the inside of it. Right there is the penicillin mold that started. And what I got from it is that the atoms that are in this lemon are a lot richer, some of them, not all, than previous lemon atoms. But this showed to me that it can be turned into penicillin as well. Lemon, of course, people know turns into penicillin as well. And now I just plan to put it in a bag and put it in my refrigerator and let the mold spread on the whole lemon. It's still new, so it takes a little bit more time, but there is right there, it started to grow, the penicillin mold. Now this penicillin has some atoms in it. Has some atoms in it that have a lot more energy than ordinary penicillin, is what the physics says and everything and so on, and most likely it has. So therefore, that's just like math. If ordinary penicillin cannot cure some disease, well then the one with more energy probably could, is like some explanation. Because how much energy is there in an atom decides the radiation of outgoing white energy into diseases, bacteria, viruses, so on and so on. So that's something I thought to show. Maybe that's the first time in history that enriched penicillin was actually made. And the interesting thing to point out, plants, of course, many parts of them are made out of sulfur as well. The roots, when plants are starting to root, so on and so on. So from some point of view, decaying away roots might be some type of answer. But some sulfur goes also into lemon. Lemon is acidic, so on and so on. So some of these decaying atoms that are now a type of penicillin could be actually sulfur, is one of the answers, and so on. Say more, I can't really say more. I don't really know much about diseases. I don't have laboratories and everything and so on. All I have is my plants and the physics that I know. So that's basically what I'm trying to explain. I don't really have laboratories or real work and everything. That is like that is more like to really present vaccines or something like that. But the physics is something that I have studied for many years. This is through my physics that I try to comprehend things and then explain them. But that's basically the easy answer that is easily understood. The medicine comes around a virus. The energy out of those atoms flows into the virus. And then the virus simply starts to break apart into its atoms. They're not anymore entangled. They're not anymore sticking together into protein and into amino acids. But the problem is that it's amino acids. So acidity is something harder to change than, let's say, if it was just carbon or oxygen. Let's say oxygen and hydrogen is H2O. That's water. You just pour in some juice and the water immediately changes energy. You pour grapes, you get wine. So the energies mix. That's how you get wine. Most of it is, wine is 14% alcohol and the rest is grapes. So therefore the energy from alcohol goes into the grapes and the energy from grapes goes into the atoms of the alcohol. And for the longer they mix the energies, the better the wine becomes, so on and so on. So let's say if it's H2O, you just pour in some mixer drink, you pour in orange juice, you pour in lemonade, and the energies immediately mix and you get a lemonade from water and lemon. So that's easily understood. And then some of the energy that's in the acidity of lemon goes into H2O and the energies mix. So that's an easy way to explain it. But when a virus is amino acids, which is acidic, and then if it's sulfur, those are the harder viruses to kill, to destroy, because the acidity is that strong. But when this physics is understood and how viruses form, then it might turn into something very easy. Because sulfur, if it was the coronavirus, if it was actually made in the blood of a snake. Now snakes grow, people know that. And the atoms have to entangle to each other for the snake to grow. Carbon to meat, so on and so on. Bone, calcium, so on and so on. So in some place of the snake, some atoms, nobody knows how. That's the tricky part. That happens in the quantum realm, which is totally unknown to people for many viruses, and that is actually the problem. And then sulfur entangles and sort of forms a virus. Or a snake ate a virus. But usually through the stomach viruses cannot pass. So probably then it was made in the blood of the snake or the animal that had the virus in the first place. And then once it's understood what is the equivalent of energy in that sulfur in the atomic realm, and those amino acids and proteins, then it's a lot easier to find a cure. Because then if a person knows what type of energy is in that acid and in that sulfur, then he can think up a counter energy easily to break it apart. And then that counter energy just enters into the proteins and the virus, and it breaks apart into the atoms themselves, how it was before it was a virus, basically. So because even that virus, before it was a virus, it was carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, sulfur, so on and so on. So basically how it's made is how it can be destroyed. Now in my physics that's quantum entanglement. I would just call that quantum entanglement. Some special quantum entanglement happened and the virus was formed. During some totally unknown temperature, quantum entanglement and temperature are, quantum entanglement equals temperature basically in most cases. So to know how to break it apart would also be to know the quantum realm temperature of the virus itself, but the quantum realm temperature, not the big temperature. In the big temperature it is easily known. And that's why I mentioned there hydrogen. Now how much hydrogen is in a virus, there people can sort of then guess what the internal temperature is. And but that's a quantum realm temperature, which 1 degree has thousands and thousands of different temperatures in it. Because we know carbon is basically colder, oxygen is 80% cold, 20% hot, similar to hydrogen, and sulfur is basically acid. So many people have problems now because of this virus around the world and everything. So I just thought to try to sort of help to see it from the physics that I know, to try to come up with some solution in hopes that it might be helpful and so on. But that's basically it. All viruses are basically the same, just some have bigger atoms like sulfur and some are made out of smaller atoms. So these smaller atoms are easier to destroy, break apart their individual atoms and mold. But the bigger atoms, it's harder because they have more neutrons and protons, therefore they have even more mass and more energy, simply put. So it could lead to a cure from all viruses from some point of view. So I'll move on now to the next part of the video, which is the lemon tree and how to make the enriched, how the tree is doing and how it is making enriched vitamin C, B6 and penicillin from the lemons afterwards. And so hopefully it'll be helpful. So basically what there needs to be found out just in a certain way is solid sulfur to know how to break it apart. A lot of roots are sulfur, meats are sulfur, so on and so on. So when it entangles into a virus, then to know how to break it apart. That the sulfur is no longer, that the atoms are sticking to each other, but that they break apart. And then once the virus breaks apart in blood into individual atoms, then it's basically just food. The body treats it just as food, as ordinary atoms, and it is no longer a threat then, and so on. So that could be one answer. That's not really that complex, is from one point of view to see how to break sulfur, solid sulfur, how to break it apart into individual atoms. So that might lead to an easier way to find a cure faster and so on. So, and another thing that I thought to point out, once there is a virus that people have it, the food that's in the blood is also subatomic energy. Plasma in the blood feeds the body, but then it might also feed the virus, and then the virus multiplies, so on and spreads. Because it is carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, sulfur, well, and that's carbon is something that people eat a lot. So the energy of food of carbon might enhances those viruses then. But the medicine is what prevents them. So then when people have viruses, maybe it's even better that they eat less of some types of foods and so on and so on. And then therefore the medicine energy can work a lot better. That too might help in case of cancer and so on. When people are have treatments for cancer, the subatomic energy that's in blood maybe is feeding the cancer as well. So therefore then too certain types of foods are better not to eat, and some are better to eat, and so on. And I have some sulfur right there. This is a type of sulfur that I use on my plants. Although I have not opened it yet or used it, it's not all organic. It's a fertilizer, but it's more like a chemical one. This is the only one I could find that's pure sulfur, just NPK 040. That is just sulfur. Because I needed it, I thought to use it on plants that they root better. On the small plants that I have, I thought to use it on them so that they establish a better root system. And lemon tree too has a lot of sulfur in it. So that's the tricky thing about biology. Many different things are made from the same atoms. The roots right there that people see, that's mostly sulfur. And that's probably enriched sulfur. A lot better, stronger sulfur in these roots and everything and so on. And so the whole thing is how to turn that into a sulfur that can be used as a medicine. That might be one example easily put. But the person would just take then the roots and let them to start decaying. And once they turn white, that's basically that. From a simple point of view. The leaves as well, and the lemons, but the lemons have the most of that in it. These lemons have been on the tree watered for months now, and months. They were a lot smaller and they got bigger. There are some of them there. There are some yellow ones there that are almost ready to be picked. But that could be one of the answers that could lead to a cure, but that's maybe. I don't really know that. I have my plants and I work on physics and biology. I work on that. And making medicine, I don't know much about it, but I know the physics that I know, basically, so on. And as people can see there, what that is showing is how much better something can be when it's made from better parts. See, because this leaf right there is 2 carbon, it's hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur perhaps, and so on and so on, just like the leaves in the back. But these atoms are a lot bigger and a lot more energy they have. So they are a lot better at being parts of the plants than those. But those were probably some chemicals used on them because they were bought from a store. So they probably used some chemical fertilizer just to make it appear good or something probably. And these leaves right there are 100% organic, natural, and everything. And the size right there of the leaf is easily understood. But that's one of the problems, see. Now the sulfur that's in this plant, that's in the leaves and the lemons and everything, the sulfur, the carbon, the oxygen, I have no idea how is it gonna react to the virus itself. Because if it is acidic, amino acids, and acidic, and a lemon is acidic, then there you get some type of that they are similar, some perhaps. And viruses feed. People know that they feed with energy, and then that energy irradiates and goes into the healthy blood cells and poisons them, and so on and so on. See, so I know what I would say is that all the atoms here that are in the lemons, vitamins and carbon, oxygen and everything in the leaves, that would all be very healthy for a human being to drink to boost the immune system, like to have a better immune system, better white blood cells, so on and so on. But the virus itself, it probably would take that a whole lemon needs to decay, turn into a medicine or a penicillin, that the sulfur decays away, turns into medicine or into a certain type of medicine, and then that it turns into a medicine, and then it's drunk. And then that energy, which is a lot bigger, would be from this plant than other plants, would give a lot more of that white energy than other medicine atoms would give. So that's the easy way of explaining it. Okay, so since this is such an important topic to find the cure or share information that might help out and so on and so on, I'm going to take people through the whole process, how I do research and so on and so on. See, most of the research I have done for the past maybe 10 years in physics, I do it through YouTube. But I observe things through not how they tell you on YouTube, but how I want to see it through my physics, so on and so on. So that's not important very much in this video, but I thought I'll take people through each and every step so that people can understand, see the whole picture, like about this and everything. Okay, so this is my computer is bugging out now. It doesn't want to show who it is. This is some TV show about elements. So I have come to the conclusion that for sure that the coronavirus, I think, okay, not for sure, but I think that mostly it's made out of sulfur. That really it is. I think, and that a person has to know what to aim for in order to find an answer to the question. So we're going to go through it step by step and to see how is it going to go.
In the periodic table of chemical elements, sulfur is located in the 16th group, just below oxygen. Sulfur has been known to mankind since the ancient times, as it can be found in its...
Okay, so now there is sulfur.
free form, especially near volcanoes or geothermal springs. However,
so there it is. Now this part is important because it's the start. So all the sulfur that's in biology, there are different versions, of course, of it on Earth. There's crystal, metal, so on and so on. But all sulfur started as sulfur. So if the virus is mainly made up of sulfur, we have to go through the whole process. How did this turn into the virus? To know the exact chemistry and the exact energy equivalent that's in the sulfur atoms, not these, but the ones of the virus. Now, we don't know that, how that happens, so on and so on, so we're gonna, so of course a person would just guess, because that it's a lot easier that way. Now the story goes that I have written down some little bits about it, and the story goes that it started from an animal that was on a piazza in Russia, which is a market in not Russia, sorry, in China, and which is a market for wild animals in China. And most people say that it came from a snake. So sulfur, everybody knows, turns into plants. So the obvious first start of the whole story would be that the sulfur turned into a plant. Maybe this sulfur, maybe some sulfur that was in a mineral form, in some lake, river, pond, so on and so on. We don't know that, but one can guess. Some sulfur turned into a plant, most likely a fruit or a leaf. Then an animal ate that fruit or a leaf that had sulfur in it. Many fruits and leaves do. and then an animal ate that animal, or a snake, the one with the virus, ate that animal. And then the sulfur, for some unknown reason, in the blood of the snake, of the animal who passed the virus to the people in China, in the blood of that animal, most likely snake, is where the sulfur changed into the virus. So the first step would be when it was a plant. Sulfur in a plant interacts with nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen. So some of those three energies went into the sulfur, because sulfur, when it comes into a water that's inside the plant, green water, there the energies of hydrogen, of carbon, and of nitrogen are the most abundant. There are, of course, many other minerals, trace minerals, so on and so on, but those are the most abundant. So those are the three energies that are the first ones that changed the sulfur when it became a plant. Then some animal ate it, that we don't know, but it could have been any animal that the snake afterwards ate. And in the blood of that animal, the sulfur, which was a plant type sulfur, went through the blood. Now we don't know what happened there, how long it was in that animal, how long the sulfur was wasting energy, how old was that animal, so on and so on, but one can sort of